Well, welcome. I am going to be speaking about a topic that I seldom or have I ever addressed. I'm talking about ancestry. I know it sounds like a boring topic, which partly is the reason why it's never occurred to me to address it. However, over the past few days, if you are in the UK or if you live in the UK, undoubtedly you have been drawn to some form of controversy that took place at an event. A royal um, representative at a gathering had a discussion, had a conversation with a woman who shares my ethnic image. And like most things, the conversation has been, in my opinion, I should make it very clear, in my opinion, has been made into something that it should never have got to. But in my opinion, also, is symptomatic um, of where we are in society. Now, let me start by saying a few things. There was a time when offense had to be given. The said offense had to be received and it had to be accepted. In society today, and particularly amongst people who share my ethnic image, there seems to be an obsession with taking offense when it has not been given. There seems to be an obsession with being seen as the victim, being seen as people, groups, um, that society is always refusing to accept. Now, I share this message with a broken heart, but also with a heavy heart. But also, I share this message um, with the hope that it would help those who share my ethnic image and also those who have a different ethnic image understand um, the grey areas in our societal disagreements. I chose the topic of ancestry primarily because the woman in question, named Ngozi Fulani, has accused someone from a high social status, the royal family leanings, what we call aristocracy, um, of perhaps inciting or inferring from the questions asked uh, the unwillingness to accept Ngozi um, at, her, at face value on her words. In any case, what happened was, as far as I know, this event was a charity event. People attended. Ngozi in question decided to dress, and I've seen some of the pictures. And the attire she wore is very native, and by native I'm referring to specifically African. Um, it's the attire you would wear if you are from a particular place or tribe, culture, people. Is the attire you would wear if you're celebrating a particular occasion, religious or otherwise. Is the attire that is often associated with a certain type of people. For those of you who share the same ethnic image as myself, and for those of you who are by ancestry African and who were born, raised, or have had a close connection with the African traditions, which are varied and many, the one thing you would understand is that we express ourselves, firstly, by appearance. Our appearance is a way of signaling our uniqueness, our strength, our diversity, if you choose to use that word, a word that I resent. But it's a way of us expressing our heritage, our culture, our customs, and our ancestry. Therefore, in interactions with people, if you went to an event attended and organized by people of the same tribe, you will find people dressing very similarly. In which case, the attires you see are consistent amongst the attendees. If someone said to you at that event, "Where are you from?" you can see that there is no hidden meaning in that question. Now pause that thought and let me go back to what I started this session by saying. There was a time when offense had to be given. The said offense had to be received, and finally had to be accepted. So people can give offense with intention, but if you don't receive the offense, then it doesn't affect you. People can give offense, you can receive the offense, or rather, the offense can be put forward to you, but you do not have to accept the offense. The separating position amongst the three is a principle that I call the principle of good faith and peaceable dealings. In my interactions with people, I always walk into the environment. I come to the table in good faith and peaceably. In other words, I go in not seeing myself as a victim and not seeing the other person as a villain. I go in hoping that I'm bringing honor to the interaction and the other person will bring honor to the interaction. How they react and respond to me reveals their honor, and how I respond and react to them reveals my honor. If they are dishonoring in their interactions, that is their problem. My approach has always been to stay in honor, not to take offense, especially if it has not been given, but more importantly, when it's given, implicitly or explicitly, to stay within what I call the aura or the grace of humility and honor. In the UK, over the past 10, 15, 20 years, what we have seen has been what I call the racializing of every single interaction between people who have opposing ethnic images. The racializing and the mobilization of victimhood and victim status, particularly by people who are either minorities, and especially by people who share my ethnic image. Now, you have to understand that I can actually speak very harshly about people who share my ethnic image, for the simple reason is that you do share my image. You are my people. The great books say that my people perish for a lack of knowledge. My people perish for a lack of understanding. My people perish because they lack wisdom. Social media has played a role in weaponizing our differences. So much so that being a victim has now been a monetizable commodity. It's a currency. Playing the victim card is now a currency. In Great Britain, and I use the word Great Britain to include Northern Ireland, or rather, forgive me, I use Great Britain to exclude Northern Ireland for a particular reason. Northern Ireland has only since joined part of the United Kingdom not too long ago. And before, it was always England, Wales, and Scotland. Generally speaking, the terminology used was the Anglo-Saxons. These were people that had Germanic origins and ancestry, or the Vikings, people from parts of Denmark who landed on the shores of this land, and early in the Middle Ages occupied this land. So when you say someone is English, whether that be any of its derivatives, that be Scottish or Welsh, you're saying the person is of Anglo-Saxon heritage or ancestry. There is a qualification for that. Both parents, all things remaining equal, would have to have been from or of the same ancestry or origin. Now, I've made that point carefully for a number of reasons. We make a huge mistake, and I have seen people make that mistake across the whole West, of confusing ethnicity with ancestry, with heritage, with race, with culture, with nationality, and with citizenship. Let me extract from all of those words 3 or 4. The first, your ethnicity. The second, your heritage or your ancestry. The third, your nationality. And the fourth, citizenship. Let me address each of those, because those 4 terminologies are not synonymous. Amongst people who share my ethnic image, there seems to be a lack of knowledge or lack of understanding of the difference between each of those words, and how, in a social environment, the questions that are being put forward, often in good faith, but from a place of curiosity, interest, fascination, are misconstrued as offensive, racial, and attacking you based on your skin color. Your ancestry deals with what I call your roots. Now, let me use the concept of a tree. A tree that's able to produce fruit, let's say an apple tree. What you find is that the tree is well rooted in one location. The tree produces fruit. The apples are consumed, plucked, and consumed within proximity, sometimes, of the tree. Some fall to the soil. Some are transported and sold. Some are gifted far away from the tree. The ones that make their way away from the original location often get planted in a different soil, and they blossom and they grow. However, its original roots or ancestry will be its original location from whence it came. So when we refer to ancestry, we're talking about something beyond you and beyond me. We're talking about your lineage. When you meet someone who is English, of Anglo-Saxon descent, we say you're Anglo-Sax by ancestry. Now, we have to stop somewhere, because the further we go, and if we go back long enough, we arrive back in Africa, which is where we all come from. Now, the point of this clarification is to say this. Your ancestry and your heritage are connected. Your ethnicity is linked to the two, but your ethnicity is a way of grouping people based on tradition, based on nation states, based on culture. Who knows? It could even be based on shared values. It could be even based on attributes. And attributes is the key word. These attributes could be physical, as you can see and observe, observable initially, or it could be attitudes, which are less visual but more observable. Mannerisms, your decorum, how you speak. But your ethnicity prior to the 19th century was connected to your race. And your ethnicity primarily dealt with your people, your tribe, where you were from. The question, where are you from, is intrinsically linked to three words: your ethnicity, your heritage, and your ancestry. The three of them. Obviously, there has to be a point in time when you stop looking back. So when someone says to you or to me, especially if you share my ethnic image, where are you from? That's not a question about where you were born. It's certainly not a question about where you grew up. The question implicitly implies that they want to know. There is a curiosity about your lineage. Most people who are not, let me choose my words carefully. Most people who do not share my ethnic image and who are either Slavic from the Baltic regions, or Anglo-Saxon, or the Vikings, or Oriental, have a challenge in delineating the different attributes that people who share my ethnic image have. So if you placed a Ghanaian next to a Nigerian, next to someone from Somali, next to someone from Ethiopia, on face value, because those people who do not share the same ethnic image have been raised in locations where they're not predisposed to the subtle differences between each of those specific group of people, they might see you all as being the same. Therefore, it's not unusual for them to say, where are you from? Because over time, as they educate themselves, they come to the realization that they cannot group all of you together, that you all have uniquenesses, attributes, you have a history, you have hopes and dreams, that you have a religion that makes you different. You have the same race, you share the same ethnic image, but you are not the same people. Therefore, the question, where are you from, should always be viewed from a place of peace, sincerity, curiosity, and fascination. Rather than be frustrated by the question, be fascinated. Many years ago, someone said to me, an Anglo-Saxon person, a friend, a loved one, said to me, I notice especially when you are speaking to people who are of the same ethnic image as you are, but who are not English or British, you go into some more detail in explaining where you're from. Many years ago, why? Why can't you just say to them, I'm English or I'm British? And I said, you have to understand that the question, where are you from, whilst being an English question, has a different meaning and interpretation across different cultures. For some cultures in the West, it simply means, where are you from? So you might say, well, I'm from London. Even though you were never born in London, even though your parents are not from London, you might say, I am from London, because that's where you live, that's where you're fixed Your home, business, your livelihood, your friends, that's where you're from. That's where you've come from, perhaps if you're visiting another place. But I said, you have to understand, when I meet people who share my ethnic image, but who are not British or English, it's disrespectful to my ancestry and my heritage and our ethnic image not to respond to the question with the level of seriousness it deserves. So it's important to say, although the question was a simple one, where are you from? It's important to explain, use a good example. I was born in Surrey, England. My family and I live in Surrey, in England. Or I was born in London, England. My family and I, we live, and my children were born in London, England. We live in London, England. My heritage, my ethnicity is Ghanaian. And I am from this particular village in Ghana, of this particular people. Can you see that I have provided more than was asked? I put my honest answers on the table for that person to extract from that what they want. I'm doing two things. I'm following the biblical precept. So for example, if you were to read the Pentateuch or the Torah, the Old Testament, the Jewish books, or even the Quran, one of the things you find is the importance of your genealogy, your ancestry, your ethnicity, your people. It was always described. Enoch, son of Seth, son of Adam, son of God. There was a genealogy. The purpose of that genealogy was to trace you back to where you're from. There is a soil from whence your people come. That soil is where your roots are planted. So if I meet someone who shares my ethnic image and I say, where are you from? And he says, well, I'm from Dundee in Scotland. That is the wrong answer. Because you and I share the same ethnic image. Therefore, you cannot be from Scotland, Dundee, because you're not Anglo-Saxon. Your parents, one could have been from Scotland. Both of them could never have been from Scotland. You do not have the Germanic or the Viking ancestry line or ethnicity. Now, you may have been born in Dundee, Scotland. That is where you were born. You may also have a British passport. That is your nationality, and you are a citizen, a subject of Her Majesty's, or not Her Majesty, since we've since lost her, our beloved Queen. You are now a subject of our Majesty the King, and therefore a subject. Therefore, the country will protect you in the event that it has to. However, your heritage, your ancestry, your lineage, your genealogy is hidden in your skin. You cannot say that the color of your eyes, the shape of your mouth, your facial features, the attributes you have, though consistent with someone from an African country, you cannot say that you are Slavic, Anglo-Saxon, or from the Baltic nations. You just cannot say that because your heritage is different. You have to be more subtle and sophisticated in your communications. Now, this is where I come to the conversation between the woman, Ngozi Fulani, and the Anglo-Saxon woman who comes from the background of aristocracy and the royal family and the connection. Let me start with a few things. there is and I hate to say this, and I hate to be the one who says this, there is a level of there is a complex, sometimes an inferior complex that exists amongst Black people who find themselves as minorities in any location, with a few exceptions. Generally speaking, my observation has been that Black people, or those who share my ethnic image, a better way of describing it, who were born in the UK to parents who were from the Caribbean islands or Africa, if they were not taught, trained, and provided with a sense of appreciation, pride, confidence, if they were not encouraged to see their heritage, their culture, their people, their ancestry as something to be proud of, irrespective of whether it was good, bad, or indifferent. If they were not taught to love themselves, to love their uniqueness, to love the color of their skin, to love their culture, to understand the value of the culture, to understand the sacrifices of the people who share the same cultural legacies, if they were not given that gift, which forms what I call your ethnic image and forms your identity and self-image, but also forms a sense of self-assurance, self-confidence, self-esteem, and self-worth, there is always an inferiority complex that exists, as I have observed, when said people interact with other people in the world. Now, here is an observation. When I meet people from Africa, born in Africa, raised in Africa, proud of their heritage, who are in the West or who have visited the West, when you adjust for how they speak, and when you adjust for perhaps education level, and you adjust for how savvy they are and social interactions, these are very proud people. They know the soil from where they have come. They know the soil from whence they came. There's a pride. There's a level of confidence. That confidence is an aura it's like a fragrance, especially amongst the men. The fragrance says, I'm from the soil. I know where I'm from. I may not be as educated as you are. I may not be as cultured as you are. I may not be as wealthy as you are. But I know where I'm from. And I know my people. If I contrast that against people who were born in the West, but share the same ethnic image, African Americans, British Africans, Caribbean British, or any other derivative, I tend to find that those who have not been schooled on their history, their ancestry, their heritage, and those who were not gifted what I call the important gift of the love for the motherland, always come out to be defensive, unsure of themselves, and they tend to, in the wrong environment, see themselves as victims. I know it's a bold statement to make. In the UK, we've racialized everything. Interactions are racialized. Things that should not be racialized have been racialized. I feel offended in this particular instance for a number of reasons. Number one, your name, especially if you share my ethnic image, says everything. So for example, if you're from Ghana, or you're from Nigeria, or you're from any part of the Western African countries, names have meanings. In particular instances, there are places where a name can be traced to a particular state and a particular village in the state and a particular community and a geographical location in the village, in the state, and therefore a particular people. my last name can be traced in that manner. Generally speaking, only a certain group of people use that type of name. The name takes you back to where the soil, where the roots are planted, originate from. Ngozi is an Igbo name. It's a Nigerian name from the tribe that are called Igbos. Her last name, Fulani, is a tribe that is spread and dispersed across the sub-Saharan area and the West African area. But we have a tribe that are called Fulanis. But that tribe is not exclusive to the northern Nigerian area. It covers a part of Western Africa and sub-Saharan Africa. So what we have there is a confusion. Even amongst people who share the same ethnic image, if I met her, I would ask the same question that she was asked. Where are you from? Because your first name contradicts or gives away the confusion in the naming. Igbos and Fulanis, two different tribes, two different names. Now, is it possible that one parent was Igbo and the other was Fulani? Yes. That is where curiosity comes into the picture and being interested. Remember what I said, in good faith. You have to come in good faith, peaceably, believing that offense is not being given, so therefore you do not take offense. You do not victimize the whole interaction, and you do not place the other person as a villain. I'll say a few things before I close. I'm going to speak very, very sternly and very specifically to white people. And by white people, I'm talking about people who are in the modern West. Those who have a connection with the British, whether it be Australia, Canada, the United States, the modern West. You have to stop apologizing when offense is not being given. You have to stop apologizing when offense is taken, even when it was not given. You have to stop apologizing when you've done nothing wrong. The last 20 years, we've seen a change, both in terms of migration and immigration and net migration. But if you go back to the 1920s and 30s and 40s, Great Britain, England specifically, was primarily an Anglo-Saxon tribe. 97% of the inhabitants were primarily Anglo-Saxon. The 1 or 2 extra percent came from other parts of Europe who always went back to their land. There were a few percentage, north, south of 0, say 0.5%, that came from other parts of the world. Those who share my ethnic image were minorities. In the 1930s, if you had asked someone in England who had my ethnic image, where are you from? That question would have been received with a warm embrace. Because for people to ask that question, it means that there is an interest. That interest could be based on how you dress, how you speak, how you present yourself, your cultural features, your beauty, your presence. When I walk into places, one of the few things people say to me is that you stand out. You have a presence to you. Now, I take that as a compliment. Now, some other people might take it in a different way. So I interact and I go out to the world in open arms, thinking good things are supposed to happen to me. And when I meet people, I expect good things, but more importantly, I go offering good things, offering services, saying, how can I be of service? How can I help you? And I get back in return what I put out. The universe is fair. She always gives you back what you ask for. What you ask for in thoughts, in feelings, or in your actions. By thoughts, what you want is created. By feeling, it's sent to you. By expectation and action, you receive it. I have been shocked that in all of my interactions with people from all over the world, I can only speak of great experiences. Why? I go in good faith, I go peaceably, but make no mistake, I'm proud of who I am. I was taught not to feel superior to anyone I met, but I was also taught not to feel inferior to anyone I met. I was raised to understand my beauty and where I'm from, my heritage, my ancestry, and my tribe. But also I was taught to love other people, their tribes, their history, their language. So when I interact with people, I'm curious. I don't hold a grudge. And even if you've come looking for a fight, I have nothing to give you. I wish you well. I put you in my prayers. But more importantly, if you've come and you dishonor me, I maintain my honor, or I increase my honor. As I leave, I shake the dust off my feet and I walk away. Let me conclude with my experience. I used to travel across Europe many, many years ago, and I was always fascinated. At the airports, before you handed over your documents, some questions will be asked. Where are you from? Why are you here? And where are you going? Now remember, this was before the documentations were handed over. The question was asked in good faith and peaceably. And I always responded with honor and respect. But in that question is a question about life. And the questions that we hold dear to our hearts about trying to understand and grapple with what this life is about. Who am I? Why am I here? Where am I from? Where am I going? What will I do in between the time that I have? In your interactions with people, recognize that the questions that are put forward to you, especially in social interactions, are not always put forward because people are looking for war. Sometimes people are ignorant. But again, it wouldn't make a difference whether they are intelligent or ignorant if you come to the table in good faith. And more importantly, if you do not try to infer from their questions what their subconscious mind thinks. The victim card that is used by Black people, especially in the UK, is a currency that is deflating itself every day, but is being used even more often. When people meet you, and when I meet people, I couldn't give 2 cents as to where you're from, where you were born, who your people are. All I'm asking myself is, do we have shared values and complementary skill sets? In other words, what is your character? If your character is consistent with mine, we can do business. If it's not, I wish you well. Even if you share my ethnic image, I wish you well, but I will not interact or do business with you. I'll close with the following statements. Those who share my ethnic image, especially those in the West, you become too weak. You're soft. You can't compete. You're looking to be accepted. You're trying too hard to be recognized. You want an even playing field. No, I don't want an even playing field. I want to be the underdog. I always want to be. I don't care whether you're an antelope, a chicken, a lion, a tiger. I'm going to dominate if we're competing in business. You become too soft. If someone were to ask you, where are you from? And you say, especially if you share my ethnic image, and assuming the person on the other side has an Anglo-Saxon heritage, and you say, well, I'm from Bolton. Well, technically, yes, you are from Bolton, but also technically you are not from Bolton. Your ethnic image is hidden in your genes, is hidden in your ethnicity, your heritage, and more importantly, the melanin content of your skin, the color of your eyes, the structure of your face, your bone density, your height to weight ratio, your skeletal frame. All of those things give you away. It would be absurd. Just in the same way that an English woman of Anglo-Saxon parents who was born in Accra, Ghana, cannot say to the people of Accra, Ghana, when asked, where are you from? She has to say, I'm of English descent. I'm of English heritage. I'm Anglo-Saxon. I was born in Accra, Ghana. I love the people. I love the country. By saying that and explaining the difference between heritage, ancestry, ethnicity, and where she was born, you put across a message to the person interacting with you, which is, I have shared values with you. I love your country. I love your customs. I love your culture. I love your history, good, bad, or indifferent. From an ancestral point of view, I am different, but I'm here with you, meaning I'm happy to die with you. The movie Dances with Wolves is a fascinating one, and you see something very strong, where someone who is of a different tribe, different culture, different heritage, can love someone else from a completely different culture, much more so than he does his own brother. There is more that connects us beyond the pigmentation of our skin, the melanin content, our gonads, and all the nonsense that are being used by the social justice warriors to politicize and encourage division. You have to transcend that position. If you have no sense of where you're from, whether that be because your parents were brought over or whatever circumstances, they have ships, they have chains. The chains were what set them free. You already have now a new heritage. Make an effort to understand your ancestry. Go learn about your people. I'm stunned at the number of people who share my ethnic image who were born in the West, who when asked, say, well, I'm from Africa. Duh. Africa is a continent. They have no concept of what part of Africa. Are you north? Are you south? Are you east? Are you central? Are you west? Go and learn about your people. And if you cannot find your origin, then claim the entire Africa. Have no shame, but be proud of saying where you're from. You were from the soil, the source, and the supply from whence your seed came. I hope that's been useful. I wish you all the best.